Appreciate you all being here today. I see some familiar faces. I am Suzanne Eichel. I'm the Director of School Counseling at Heritage. I'm very happy you're here. I like this format. I feel like it gives us a bit more of a chance to have questions answered. You're going to see later that we have a lot more opportunities for you to come on over to Heritage to hear more about the transition to 9th grade, but we certainly appreciate you all being here. We're excited to welcome your students as the class of 2023, which for me that is hard to believe. I'm sure as a parent it's even more difficult to believe. So just a show of hands, for how many of you is this going to be your first child in high school? Okay, hang in there. Raise your hand if you currently have a student at Heritage or you have had a graduate. Okay, so look around, these are your veterans. All right, you can use each other for support, hopefully reassurance that you are going to get through this. It is an exciting time, but we also understand that this might feel a little stressful, all right? Might kind of feel like the Hunger Games sometimes. Your students are going through many changes. We don't have to tell you that. Their hormones are racing. They are getting, a greater chance to have independence, but they still need your help, but they don't want to ask for it. We understand that, and we still love them, as we know you do as well. But we understand this can be a little stressful as a parent. And so I heard back from the survey that I think Ms. Harper sent out, and there were some consistent themes. I asked the question, what are you kind of most concerned about with this transition? And then also, what are you most excited about? Because this is an exciting time, so hopefully you can keep that in mind. But some of the themes that we saw with, what are you concerned about related to, we had lots that related to course selection and academics. Does this seem to kind of resonate with you? So we're going to talk about that today. Questions like, how do I make sure they're choosing the correct classes? Are they ready for the rigor? How do I communicate with teachers and support my students? We're going to go over that. Social adjustment, right? Just, are they going to have friends? How do they deal with those changes? At Harper Park and kind of throughout their education at this point, they have been grouped with their classmates. Even at middle school, they're housed in teams. And that's not the case in high school. Their lunches are mixed. They have all grades in their lunches. The hallways are mixed. If they have electives, they would have electives with all different grade levels. So we understand that can be very nerve-wracking. And then we did have some concerns just about risky behavior in general. The concerns about drug use, whether that's with your own student or the students that they're surrounded by. So I'm going to talk about that today. And then as far as what you're excited about, we got many responses that said you are excited for the independence that they're gaining, that they are excited as well. Also academic opportunities. So they will have more chances to take different electives, to explore different career paths, and that is exciting. So I'm going to share a little bit about that today and kind of direct you where you can go to get more resources. Also extracurricular opportunities, whether that's sports, whether that's theater, whether that's, service clubs. Just last night, Mr. Adam cameoed in Guys and Dolls. Has anybody had a chance to see that play? It's wonderful. That's our musical theater class. They got some snow dates.
Recommended on the news this morning.
Yes, I forgot to record that, but yeah, Aaron Gilchrist from Channel 4 did one of the cameos that was not snowed out. I saw that with my daughter. It was wonderful. But this is the kind of stuff that they get excited about. That sounds like you're excited about too. So I'm going to make sure you know kind of where to go to figure out what your options are. So you can talk about that along with maybe some of the stressors. And then family pride. We had lots of people that were excited that their kids were going to be in the same school, which I thought was great. We feel like we have a real feeling of family over at Heritage, but what I really like to see is that when I said, what do you think your kids are excited about? You said they were excited about being in school with their siblings, which is wonderful. So that's nice, and we heard that from a few of you. Okay, so I want to make sure you know some of the people that are kind of going to be teaming with you all to help shepherd your kids through not just this transition in 9th grade, but all 4 years at Heritage. This is our administration team. Hopefully some names look familiar. If not, I'm sure you'll get to know them. Mr. Adam is our principal. If you haven't seen him yet, you will. He's very visible. He's very involved. He's got great relationships with the kids. He was on stage last night in his cameo role in Guys and Dolls. I think they really enjoyed that. We have 3 assistant principals, and they are split by student last name, so that Mr. Mr. Ross Armstrong has the top part of the alphabet, Ms. Kim Turner has the middle, and Mr. Adrian Powell has the bottom. And one thing I like to kind of highlight about these three professionals is that this is the longest cohesive assistant principal team in the county at the high school level. These people opened the school and they have not left. So I think that speaks to just the environment of Heritage. You know, it's not just a place where we really focus on students feeling welcome, but also the staff feels really encouraged there and satisfied. So that longevity, I feel like, speaks to that, and I've been with people for a long time. As I said, I'm the school counseling director. I'm Suzanne Eicholtz. I also started my career at Heritage as a counselor in 2006. This is my 5th year as the director. I love working at Heritage. Our athletic director is Mr. J.J. Totero. This is for your students, it will be his 2nd year as athletic director, but he's been around as well. He was our assistant athletic director prior to that. And I'll share some dates where you all will get a chance to hear more about athletics specifically coming up. And then our special education dean is Miss Ashley Colbus. Miss Colbus has also been at Heritage for quite a while. She was a special education teacher prior to that. And I've lost track of the years that she's been in the dean position. But I did see in the responses that quite a few of you had mentioned just concern for that transition. You know, if you are a parent of a student with an individualized education plan, we recognize that that could be an additional level of anxiety for you as a parent or your student. Ms. Colbus, as you don't quite know who your case manager will be yet, she's a wonderful point of contact. So if you have specific questions about that transition, about what that looks like at Heritage, I would encourage you to reach out to her to just get a footing for where you're starting. So we're going to talk about social adjustment first. Okay, and I want to again kind of show you the faces and the names of people that you're going to be partnering with along their 4 years to kind of help make sure this is a success. This is our school counseling department at Heritage. All right, and those are the individuals that we are broken up by caseload. Yeah, I'll go back to that one. We're broken up by caseload as well. It's a little bit different than in Harper Park. I know here you're by grade, but your counselors still move with you. So our counselors move with the students by breaking up by last name for the caseload. Then the hope is that we get siblings together so we get to have consistency in the families that we work with. I'm Suzanne Eicholtz, again, I'm Director of Counseling. Currently, Ms. Megan Zastowski has letters A through C. Ms. Cheryl Barr is a counselor for letters D through I. Now, I will say Ms. Barr is getting ready to enjoy a well-deserved retirement next year. So we are going to be sad to lose her, but I have every confidence that the new counselor will also be wonderful about taking care of your children and working with you and the teachers. Mr. Jones has all students with the last names J through M-I. Ms. Kim Marie Brown, last names M-J through S-C, and Mr. Keenan Elder has the end of the alphabet S-D through Z. So if these are not familiar faces for you, they will be. They are kind of your first point of contact if you're really not sure where to go. Often they can direct you in the right place to get your questions answered. And then also just kind of some VIPs for the counseling department. Ms. Kathy Kelly is our counseling secretary. If you were new to Heritage, she'd be your first point of contact with registration. She also assists in the college application process. Ms. Betty Keener is our second counseling secretary. She has withdrawal duties as well as other support roles. Ms. Patricia Dawson is our Career Center specialist. And the Career Center is another area that we hope that you and your students will get real familiar with. And I should say, I've posted this on our website. So pressure's off to try to take notes. Feel free. That's great. Feel free to take pictures. But it's posted on our Heritage website. And I'll show you how to get to that. So if you want to sit back and relax, you can. Our Career Center at Heritage is a place that we team with as the counseling department. Kids will come in there. Our Career Center specialist works real closely with us to help them explore career paths. For some, it's to help get maybe a summer job or an internship. But she's also works real closely with us on that college application process, the exploration process. What are you thinking of doing after high school? So she is a wonderful resource. Also scholarships. She is our main point of contact for scholarships. So if your kids don't know her, tell them to visit early and often. She's a wonderful resource. Ms. Brenda Gottlieb is our testing coordinator, and she supports with verified credits that I'm going to be talking about as I go over diploma requirements a bit later. She is the coordinator to make sure that students are taking and passing the tests that they need to graduate. She's wonderful in working with students individually, especially as, you know, if they're running into a challenge of passing those tests. She's very reassuring. She's very good, and we work real closely with her. And Ms. Nell Negron is actually right over there. She may be a familiar face as well. She works at Harper Park as a parent liaison, and we get to share her. And she is a wonderful resource for our team. We work real closely with her. Okay, so let me go back. As I mentioned, you know, resources for you all. We have just recently revamped our school counseling website. We're very proud of it. Ms. Megan Zawistowski is kind of the lead in doing that. But we really want this to be a go-to resource for you all. This is also, if you forget everything about what you learned today, this will be posted there. You can see who the counselors are, get a little info about them. But let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so this is what that page looks like, and you can get here from the main Heritage webpage. We have 3 domains in counseling: academic, personal, social, and college and career, so you'll kind of see that reflected on our website. But specifically in this moment, as you all are thinking, how do I help my student make the right choices for course selection? How do I get them familiar with Heritage? I want to highlight, and I'll show this again a bit later. First, here's how you see the faces. Okay. There we are. And then under academics, course selection information. I'll show you this page a bit more in depth later. This is where the link to this presentation is as well. We have a whole section for rising ninth graders on here. Okay, so this is a good resource. Our goal with this page specifically is kind of to have you have a one-stop shop, because we know it can be very confusing to try to find all this information. We have all of the academic departments linked here. The videos that we've made throughout the year are here as it relates to course selection. So feel free to explore and use this page. We hope it's a good resource for you. Okay, so we talked about the transitions that your students are going through. They're developing, their brain is still developing as it comes to decision making, peer choices. Like I said, they're kind of being removed from that safety net of being automatically grouped with those peers, so they might find themselves without quite the sure footing that they've had growing up. And we recognize that, we know you recognize that. So I want to reassure you that ups and downs during this time are very normal. You know, that is a normal part of growing up, that's a normal part of being a teenager. What we want to kind of give you the information on is, you know, when might you need to say, you know what, maybe it's time to reach out. And so what you're looking for really is if you see extended or severe changes in mood, appetite, sleep habits, level of interest in outside activities, okay? And, you know, I would also say trust your instincts as a parent. If you have concerns, if you're really not sure does this meet the qualifications or not, then reach out. Your counselors are always happy to have that communication. We team very well with our teachers, who are the ones that get to see your students for 90 minutes every other day. So it is a very normal thing to have communication with you all if something is going on at home. That it would be helpful to have that background knowledge where, you know, your student might not be coming in at their 100% each day. You know, to have us have the information that, you know, their brain is split this many directions right now. You know, they might not be able to fully pay attention to those classes. Even having that information and being able to communicate with the teachers to the degree that you're comfortable with. Hey, I want you to know that, you know, Brian is, he's having a rough time right now, so if you can reach out to me if you're seeing X, Y, and Z, that would be great, and then we communicate with you. That is a very normal conversation, so just the main point there is that if you can keep us informed, we will help with that communication, and then the support that we're able to offer your student just grows. We also have on our webpage Loudoun County Mental Health Resources. So you want to kind of peruse and see what's available. And again, if you're there, don't get stuck there. If you're like, I don't know where to go, just give us a call, and we'll help with that. The county has also recognized and supported increased mental health support, and they've started with the high school. And one of the ways that we're seeing that is that they have formed the Unified Mental Health Team. And what that means is that every high school, this is the second year that's in place, every high school in Loudoun County not only has the counselors, but they have a full-time school psychologist, as well as a full-time school social worker. Now, these are not new positions, but it is new that we get them full-time. 3 years ago, we shared these two positions with multiple other schools, but they recognized, let's increase the support available, the permanency of that position. And so this is our second year with a full-time school psychologist and full-time school social worker. You've seen these guys before, but our school psychologist is Ms. Catherine Tenuso. She's wonderful, and the counselors team with these professionals. If we feel like a student needs a bit extra support, often we can say, all right, I want you to not just know who I am, but let me give you 3 other faces in the building in case I'm in a meeting, in case I'm out and you're struggling. Here's who you can turn to. So this has been wonderful for us, and we feel like it's helped us kind of bridge that gap of the need. So Ms. Tenuso is our psychologist. Ms. Leslie Saunders is our school social worker, and she's actually been there just about since Heritage opened, but we're fortunate to have her full-time. Ms. Saunders, in her role as a school social worker, is very good at linking families with resources. I would say that she's wonderful at that. So there's different ways that we kind of partner together, but the main idea is that we are a team. Ms. Megan Marshall is our student assistance specialist, and her focus, she is a counselor, and she helps students that are either at risk for substance use, struggling with substance use, or that is something that their family might be struggling with. She's very good, and she also kind of spearheads efforts for prevention of substance abuse. So when I'm hearing your concerns about drug use, about kids experimenting with alcohol, we recognize that that is something that faces teenagers, and they have to kind of have the skills to deal with that. And she is part of our team to help support that effort. Each year we reach out to parents and students to say, what are your needs? What are your concerns? You saw that in the survey that some of you may have taken to figure out what you need to have addressed here. And we have seen in recent years the increase of concern about drug use. And, I will say that from a bird's eye perspective, Heritage is a very safe environment. Kids come to school, they're there for school, they're there to learn, but we would have our heads in the sand if we didn't address this. So she is part of that effort. So prevention of substance abuse. She also, like I said, is involved in counseling for students' families, maybe struggling with substance abuse or experimentation. And she is also a good link for us for the Pride as a whole with resources. She helped us to gain our speaker, which we brought in at the beginning of the year in response to what we saw listed as your all's desire to hear more about that. Sam Lucania came in, and he talked about his experience with drug abuse and addiction and the mental health piece that went with that. The kids were mesmerized. It was very impactful, and so that's her in some of this effort. She's also created some advisory lessons around that. So we are working on that. Constantly want your feedback, but please reach out, if you have concerns. So academics, and this could be many presentations on this. So hang in there. It's a lot of information. I forget if I said it before. Please feel free to raise your hand. If we get to the point where there are too many questions, we'll put them towards the end, but we're not there yet. So if you have a question, raise your hand. I'll do my best to answer it, because I know this is stressful, and it doesn't get any more simple each year. So we're going to work hard to help you with that. One theme and word that you will hear quite often, my hope is that you hear quite often because we're intentional about it, is balance. And that is balance within your student's schedule and balance between their academic schedule and what they're doing in the rest of their life, because it's important to realize their academic schedule is this much of their entire life, right? And we realize that possibly the most difficult people to convince of that are the students sometimes. So we get that. So you have a tough job, but we are here to partner with you. One thing that I would encourage you, we're in that course selection period right now, which is crazy to say because it's January, but we are starting to plan for next year so we can get everything set, get our staffing set, make sure we have everything we need to support a good year for you all. And so this is the time to start talking to your students because they're being talked to. And I'll show you kind of what that timeline looks like. But as you all are helping your students make choices about your classes, and this isn't just for 9th grade, this is for each year in Heritage, I would encourage you to be real didactic about it. Take an actual schedule, a blank schedule, and say, all right, let's map out what your week is going to look like. Let's block out the times when you should be sleeping. Let's block out the times when you're actually in school. Do you play a sport? Block out the practices, block out the games. Are you involved in other family activities? Put it down there so that you have a realistic look about what those hours look like. Then you can say, okay, here are your open chunks. Let's figure out what this is going to look like with the schedule that you're picking. And let's build in some socialization time, some just family time. So we want you to take that holistic look at it because we feel like that's one of the strategies to have a healthy balance, to make sure you know what this is going to look like, because all that work doesn't magically get done. You need to make sure you have the hours in the day. That's a tough job, but if you can be real purposeful about it, mapping it out like that could help. And then I say you'll hear me talk about course information night as well. That is coming up this Monday at Heritage, the 28th. Starts at 7:30, and I'll have another reminder slide there. But in that, you'll hear from the different department chairs, and first we'll have, a portion of it will be a presentation in the auditorium to have them share about their courses, and then we break out into question and answer in the library. And what they have been guided to do is make sure that they are able to help you understand what the workload commitment is in those classes, so that when you're doing this with your family, you'll have a good understanding. Okay, if I take honors, this is what I'm looking at, so you can make those good decisions.
Should the student come on Monday as well?
We would love that. Yeah, we would love that. Yeah, they might argue with it, but we would love it. And then the last piece I would say is reassurance. And what I mean by that is, and this is a tough task sometimes, but reassuring them that not every student is taking 5 APs. Now, we can't have your freshman take, it's not possible, so you got to safeguard next year, but you'll be faced with those conversations as you go. But the reassurance that it is okay for them to select a course balance that works for them, that's healthy for them, and that meets those needs that I'm talking about. And you all are the experts on your students. You will have an idea, realistically, if you have a student who can take those honors classes, somehow manage to get it all done in study hall, and still have plenty of time to play Fortnite and do whatever else they want to do. And you will know if you don't. You will know if you have a student who is extremely hardworking, but they need 2 hours at night with your support to get stuff done. So we want you on the front end to consider all that and reassure them that you need to pick a schedule that works for you. Ultimately, we hear the concerns, well, what about college? What about all that? And we get that. We're not brushing that off in any way, but I would say the balance that's healthy needs to be the driving force, and the college will follow, or the correct career path afterwards will follow, because there are many colleges out there. And even the ones that neighbors are saying require 8 APs as a senior, which is impossible, they understand balance as well. Okay, so that's a courageous conversation to have. Okay, so the course selection process, what does that look like? Because like I said, we're at the beginning of this right now, and your current 8th graders are being talked to now in their classes. Their core teachers are going over example lessons of what it means to be in an honors 9th grade English versus an academic, so they can see what does that look like. Same with math, science, and history. So ask them about that. They are seeing that right now to try to give them a sneak peek. Your Harper Park teacher recommendations, has anybody seen those? They are live in Student View. I think Ms. Harper just said they were just published. So if you haven't, ask your student to go into Student View or go into Parent View, and you'll see recommendations tab, I believe, on the left. And you can see what they were recommended for. We place a lot of importance on those recommendations because it's coming from somebody, the educational professional that's worked with your students. Again, 90 minutes every other day. So see what they're recommended for. If you have a question, reach out to that teacher. If it doesn't match with what you're thinking, get their feedback. Have that conversation. That's what we are encouraging at our level as well. In fact, we've taken the step to lock in those core course recommendations as well as world language, because we so greatly value those conversations. And we're not barring anybody from making a family decision ultimately, but we need to know that you've heard from the teacher the reasoning. So okay, well, if I choose to go above this recommendation, what do I need to really focus on this summer? So look at those teacher recommendations and have those conversations if you have any questions about them. I mentioned course information night. Somebody can keep track of it. I'll probably hit 10 by the end of the presentation, but I think this is a wonderful resource. I think it is the second or third time we've done it. And like I said, the format will be, we'll introduce, the department chairs will speak kind of briefly in the auditorium, and you need to know that they're not going to be able to hit every single class, but it'll be a real good overview, and it'll point you to where you can go for resources. So we'll start in the auditorium with a sit in here presentation, and then we'll break out in those same department chairs along with some other teachers in the areas. We'll be in the library with some handouts, ready to answer questions. So that if you were coming in saying, I'm thinking about English 9, or I'm thinking about Algebra 2 trig versus Algebra 2, and okay, tell me what this is really like. Here's some of my feedback of my student, and have that conversation. This is a great chance for that, and we're all in the same room. The counselors will be there as well. So I would encourage you to come, bring your kids. If you need to bribe them with whatever, do that. But even if they phase out for half of it, that information is so good because they don't just talk about this year. This is open to our current students, and so the focus is holistic. So they can talk to you about the science path for graduation, the math path, and what your choices now mean as far as when they get older. So mark that on your calendars. It starts at 7:30. We don't usually start our information nights that late, but we are trying to condense the nights away from home for our parents. So the first part of that is our conference night, where they signed up with their current teachers for time slots if they wanted to, because it's mid-year. So that's why we have a little bit more of a later start for that. But 7:30, it starts in the auditorium on Monday.
For how long will it be?
We have it blocked out from 7:30 to 9:30. But the last part, as I said, is question and answer. So if you feel like you've got all your questions answered, you can leave whenever. That first part, I'm thinking the first part of the auditorium will maybe be 45 minutes because we really want to leave time for the discussion afterwards. Okay. Our counselors, our heritage counselors, the faces I just showed you, they are going to come over here and talk to your 8th graders, and that is coming up starting February 5th. So they come here, they give a general information presentation to your 8th graders, and then they step them through picking their classes. Okay, so that's coming up. Please know that that is not the final say, because that's probably a pretty stressful thing about your kids picking their classes without you in school. It's where we start. That's how we start the high schoolers too. And then you're made aware of what they're selected, and then you're starting those conversations with the teachers, with Mr. Missick, to say, all right, talk to me about this class. What do you think about this class? And so we come over to you all to start that process with your 8th graders, and then you continue working with your counselor here. I mail out a drop ed form along with your official record of this is what your student has selected for their courses next year. And that comes around the last week in May, because there's a lot of shuffling that happens, but at that point we're saying here's your official record to say your son or daughter picked these classes. So now's your chance, if you want to change anything, to do that, and there's a paper in there to do so. Because we do have a deadline for changes to course requests. I'm talking a lot about the course selection process. We put a lot of emphasis into it. We know you do as well, and we want to honor that. And so that's when we are going to cut off changes, because we know you've thought about it. We know you've talked about it as a family. That deadline is purposefully a week after school ends each year, because that gives you a chance to take a deep breath, talk as a family, and then say, okay, we know how you finished up the school year. Are these still good choices for you? Okay, and then from that point on, we're really not making changes. Okay, and we need to be able to have that deadline because we honor the process. Yes?
Where's the teacher recommendations that you said were put out on Parent View?
It is, I believe on the left there's a recommendations tab. Are you seeing that through Parent View?
Yeah, I don't see.
Under course requests? If you're not finding it,
I'm not finding it.
May not be on the mobile app.
oh,
Oh,
okay. Gotcha. Okay, so that's their homework.
thought I was just being stupid.
Nope, see, that's a good, okay.
Like,
So
what?
it's not, but, which is probably how most of you are checking it, so that's good to know. Okay, very good. Okay, so that deadline is important, right? So make those decisions, have those family discussions, and then that's your deadline to make changes. So we can make sure that we're ready to go for the courses that you selected. This, as I said before, we have tried to make our course selection information page on the Heritage School Counseling website as useful to you all as possible. If there's something on there that you wish were there that you don't see, shoot me an email. We've linked as much as we can think of to link here. And so you know, so again, that's under Heritage School Counseling, Academics, course selection information. You can also get it from the right large drop down under Parent Resources. You can see directly course selection information. So at this point, and today actually, our kids at Heritage, we have it so that our elective teachers, often with the support of their students, make elective videos so that they can share what these classes are about. So we have altered our schedule these past 3 days to show these videos to the entire classes. Those videos are linked on here as well. And then today is when our kids get stepped through the process of making their first selections in Student View. So that's where we are. Okay. So if you want to see those videos, they are down at the bottom. Like I said, this is your specific 9th grade information section. There's a presentation right here. This is the sheet, that is the handout that you have there. This was a Rising Knight student advice video that our students made a couple years ago, which is still very pertinent, and I love it. They did a great job, so I've got that up there. If you're curious, what does the entire elective sheet look like? We try not to overwhelm your kids when we give it to them, but this is what our older kids get, and that's right here, that's right there. And then you'll see me talk about an academic career plan a little bit later, and I'll show you what that looks like. So down here, if you're curious about those elective videos, they're all linked. Okay? Okay, so you've made it past that course selection, right? Your student has a schedule. They're starting high school. So what now? You know, what are some strategies for success? Who can you turn to? What are your resources? Heritage has many resources built into the school day for students that need support, specifically in those core classes. But just some general tips, and these are from teachers that have been watching students and students that have made it through. You know, use your agenda. Now, that looks very different today than it did 4 years ago. You know, in fact, we don't hand out an agenda automatically anymore because so few kids were using it. So actually, I should probably alter this to say, use your planning app. You know, use your phone or whatever method that works for them. Make sure they have a method. Make sure that they're writing down when assignments are due, not just when they're due, but they should be writing down in that planning device or notebook, study for this test. You know, each day, so it's real clear, and they should be able to show you what their plan is to accomplish all of their tasks. Do your homework on the same day it is assigned. That is not going to be an easy job for you guys to convince your students to do, but it is the best method to avoid procrastination and the stress and snowball effect of that. If your students can get home and immediately start working on what they've been assigned to, it's going to help them for a number of reasons. Our teachers are very available, and as I said, we have resources there. So if they find out the first night they're trying this homework, yeah, I don't get this part of it, I give them the day to ask questions and to get resources and to get help. So encourage them to do that homework the day it's assigned. Check their teacher's webpage and vision page. So get familiar with what that looks like. I will say that when students are out now, no longer is it, all right, let me send around a folder and they're going to give you all the worksheets you missed. Many times they're directing you to that vision page and saying, all right, everything's linked here, take a look. You know, let me know if you have questions. So the student needs to be real familiar with that, and that's a great opportunity for you to say, all right, show me your teacher's work, your teacher's pages, whether it's a Google site or Vision. So have them be real familiar with that. Yes.
So, do we have a password or is the password keys? Because right now I struggle, so I have the parent view, right? But there's a Google Class page which I have to ask permission to her to see what it's there. Versus Joe, I just,
It should either be open or they should give you the password at the beginning of the class. So if there's an access issue, I would say reach out to that teacher directly.
Okay.
And if you're finding it with all of the teachers, when you're reach out to me or that counselor and we can figure out what's going on. Because you should have complete access to it so you can see. Yeah.
So Heritage doesn't give agendas? Can you buy a school agenda, or you just get your own, whatever works?
I don't even know if you can buy them at this point because so few kids were using them.
Okay.
They were by request at one point.
They were.
That's changed.
Kind of like lockers. Here's the reality, kids don't use them. So agendas and lockers we're seeing are kind of, so you take them to Target and have them pick out.
Yeah, whatever works.
What
That's
they
what I
wanna
did
use.
for my
Yeah.
daughter. She just got it.
Yeah. Yes.
in high school, are the teachers using Google Classroom? Is everybody using the same system? Or
They're
are
not
there
using
gonna
the same
be 5
system.
different systems?
I know that would make your job infinitely easier. We get it. That's a slow process. They're not currently using the same system. Many are on the Google Classroom, but some still have the Vision. So it could look different at this point. I think if you ask me that question 5 years down the road, we'll have implemented everything one way, but we're just not there yet.
Yeah, that's probably the thing I hear most from parents right now, is the amount of time it takes to coordinate with your child and go to all these different sites to figure out where the information is
Right.
and find the links and find where you need to be. That by that point, that's the window of time a parent has with a child to
Right.
interact, and you're done. So it's, for some families, this technology has become such a stumbling block that it needs to be voiced.
Yeah. Well, I will pass that on, so you're not the first one to voice that. We see that as well. Many of us on staff have kids and experience it as well. The reality of that is it's not a quick implementation, but I hear that and appreciate that, and I will continue to pass that on. Okay, how many people are familiar with Google Sites? Just informal, which have you found easier to use? Google Sites
Google
or
Classroom is good. But right now, I think the disconnect, at least from what I see, is some teachers use it, and a lot of teachers this year, honestly, my son's class are using it.
Yeah.
What I still see though is there's a disconnect then with information making it into parent view. For instance, some teachers will send out an email reminder about a test, but not actually put it on the calendar in parent view, so you can see it's coming rather than just an individual email.
Okay.
Whereas they're putting in the homework, which doesn't make sense to me. Fine, I see the homework, but why not also put the test there if you put in the homework there? So it's these inconsistencies that make it really difficult to stay on top of what's going on.
Yeah.
Not having a calendar that truly shows all the quizzes, all the tests, all the projects, and then seeing all the detail. And as teachers are still getting familiar with Google Classroom, you also see the inconsistencies of how they're using their sites. Some much better than others, as they're more familiar. So those are all issues making it really tough to stay on top of what the kids need to do, and just people say, hey, I know you got this, do work on it,
Yeah, and I know that's a difficult task regardless of technology, so I understand how the technology piece can make it more difficult.
Hopefully just additional training and helping them understand that they have to be consistent and they can't choose their favorite. It seems like they're using what's easiest for them
Right.
because they're under pressure to get their work done, and so there's things that are not being tied, and their assumption is that the kid heard in class. Meanwhile, the parents, and maybe a second parent who's trying to also be helpful,
Sure.
is so overwhelmed by not having the right information to help their child.
I appreciate that, and I know that we have heard that. And I can say internally, we're making progress, but I know it's not where it needs to be, so I appreciate that. So that tells me that you all are ready and willing, certainly, to partner with your kids and work on this at home, and that's one of the biggest things you can do for them. So we'll work on our piece in that as well. Communicating with your teacher, emails. Certainly, I would say that if you're hoping to get info on a regular basis, just the reality of what is the most successful way to do that is for you to initiate that email. If you're like, my kid is at a point where I need to know every Monday how he's doing. You said that email, you can copy and paste it, you can send it every Monday. It's much more successful, I would say, for them to have it in their inbox and be able to respond, as opposed to say, hey, can you email me every Monday? You know, so that, just if we're talking about what's working, that would be the strategy I would implement. Yeah.
So Suzanne, I know that you remember my kids, but back when they were in high school, I went through some of the issues that the ladies are talking about with the schedules and when the tests are and all that.
Right.
Back then, Heritage basically advocated to me that you have to remember that they're in high school. This has to start becoming their responsibility, not mine. And so that was a big piece for me. I don't know if the philosophy has changed.
No, that's still there.
Okay.
But I'm
Because-
also, go ahead.
So I just think from going through that, I just wondered, is it still the philosophy, listen, parents, I don't want to say you have to back off because that's not the right terminology. I don't mean to sound that way, but they do encourage you to remember that they're getting to a point where they need to know where the quizzes and tests are. They need to be putting it in their book that you can share with, that they can share with you about it, whether it's an agenda or a planner that you buy to use to communicate your whatever.
Right.
And I did have one with special ed where I got some class notes because, you know, that was part of his IEP. So there are avenues,
Right.
but the biggest thing is we have to keep pushing the responsibility on the child, not between us and the teacher. Is that still the philosophy?
That's absolutely the goal.
Okay.
You know, yes, and that's a balance. You know, I mean, we would not like it if we were in the situation where I wasn't having these questions about how can I help my student. You know,
Right.
so that's what we want. We want you all to be involved, parents, and to support your students with that as the ultimate goal. You know,
Okay.
Ultimately, yeah, I would recommend, you know, if your student is at a point, okay, you don't know what this assignment is, yeah, they should be the one emailing the teacher. You can have them CC you on it. You know?
Sure.
So yes, that is the philosophy. You know, and the reality, especially as you're transitioning ninth grade, you know, we
Right.
want you to be able to have that, even if you are in your room checking it, to do the backward and pretending like you're not checking up on your kid, and then, you know, stealthily having those conversations and trying to guide them towards what you know is due. You know, that's all towards the same goal. But so I don't think we're talking about different things.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we would all agree that the goal is that when they leave us, we need them to be functioning independent adults, right? But there's certainly room for that support on your side and for us to give you the tools you need. So I think the answer to everything is yes.
Okay.
Right? So that communication with your teacher, having them get involved. You know, we have found that kids that like coming to school ultimately do better. You know, and so making sure they're not just coming to school and then maybe going home. There's so many things you can get involved in. We have a unicycle club. You know, I mean, if there's not a club for it, they can create it and grab a willing adult to be their sponsor. So, you know, encourage them to get involved. If they like coming to school and they start forming those relationships with their teachers, it's amazing what students will do when they feel that connection. So you can encourage that involvement to get there as well. Having them set goals, you know, being purposeful, and saying, all right, here's where I was first quarter. How do I feel about that? What's your goal for second quarter? Because then you can keep referring to their own goal that they've set as you're trying to help them with that motivation along the way. And then you all, I know it's on your minds because you mentioned it, you know, but peer groups, you need to be mindful of the time that your students are spending and what that peer group looks like. You know, make sure that that is reflecting what you are trying to instill in your student. Even when they're 18, you're going to be, you know, thinking about that. Probably when they're 38, you're going to be thinking about that. But that is appropriate, you know. And make sure that you're having those conversations because they're going to be the ones choosing their friends. So talking about making sure that those students are also working towards similar goals because that will help support them because peers are such a huge influence at this age group. Okay, so they are in their classes. You guys have done all the hard work partnering with them. They are hustling to try to make that class work. Maybe they chose, after having a conversation with their current core teacher, to say, all right, I hear what you're saying. I think I'm going to give that honors class a try, even though it might be against what was first recommended. You've heard what they said to work on. You diligently worked on it. However you end up in the situation where, you might be at a point where you're thinking, I don't know about this match, of the class. We have laid out what our process is, because we're real purposeful about how we handle that, because we don't want students to change themselves. We know how much effort you're putting in. You see how long I'm talking about the course selection process. There's a lot that goes into that. We know you've done a good job. And so we don't want to have it be a situation where a student says, I can't do this, and we say, okay, go switch classes. That's a disservice to them. And so what we need to see happen, and what our goal is to support them through the rigor that they're choosing. And what that means is we make sure that they are aware of the resources, and we check and see, have they been using those resources. We have every block at Heritage Math Lab, which is a room where it is staffed by a math teacher, each block. So during the school day, during their study hall day, they don't need to have permission to go there. They can go there, bring their work, get help studying for math, get help understanding what they're not understanding. Often we have teachers say, I'm inviting you to go to Math Lab this block, because they see where they're struggling. So that is right there as a resource. We have a reading writing center, which is staffed by our English teachers. That is an excellent resource, not just for English, but for social science. Because often in social science, it's those database questions. It's that type of writing assignment that is tricky, especially in those pre-AP world history classes. So that is available every block at Heritage, and staffed by our teachers. We have a science center. We have study halls that if it gets to a certain point and a need, we can reschedule them into those specific supported study halls. We have academic clinics where we have teachers available for support after school. And then we have the web pages as well, and the teachers themselves as the resources. So we've worked really hard to make sure that there's a lot available to them during the school day, because we know what they look like when they come home. And so we are going to make sure that this is a part of them trying to work through that rigor. And so the counselors are often, that first point of contact, and they're going to remind them what's available. They're going to help if that link is not working to get them there to use those resources. And there's going to be communication. They're going to be reaching out to you. They're going to try to put you in communication with the teacher if that has not helped. But first they're going to ask the student, have you talked to your teacher? Because that is the first thing that needs to happen. The student needs to talk to the teacher. So all of these things come into place. But then if we're at the point where we still are all agreeing, we see the effort you put in. This is a no-fault process, but we are at the point now where it's in your best interest, we all agree, to change down a level. Then that needs to get approved by school administrator. The counselor facilitates that process, and if we need to at that point, it's all approved and agreed on, then we would. But I want you to understand what goes into it and why all of that goes into it and where we're coming from. The other thing to know is that space might realistically be limited in those other classes. And it might not be the same block. So, if they start in, pre-AP world history, and then we go through this process and it's determined, that is not a good fit for you right now, where you are. We need to look at an academic. It's not a guarantee that there's going to be one open in that block. So all of this goes into our reasoning for why we work really hard to support them through the rigor that they're choosing. So I want to make you aware of that.
So all those resources are available, so there's a teacher available in the math lab, only one teacher or more resources?
I've seen two there. I've often seen the math teacher whose duty it is to be in there, and then our department chair is often in there. Mm-hmm. And they're good at coordinating, if they come in and it's a student with calculus questions, they are teaching algebra for the most part, they're good at kind of coordinating that stuff.
They would visit the lab during math class?
Study hall.
Study hall.
During study hall. So you guys know we have A days and B days. We have a block schedule. 1, 2, 3, 4 on A days, 5, 6, 7, 8 on B days. One of those blocks, however their other classes schedule, is a study hall. It could be A1, it could be B7. It's going to look different for everyone. That's why we have a math lab every block. So whenever their study hall is, they can go to the math lab. Does that make sense? Yeah.
One study hall per AP day.
One study hall total.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to talk about graduation requirements. Okay, so take a deep breath, and there could be a lot of information, but please know that we're always available as resources. I just want to give you the overview of the big picture of how to get towards graduation, but know that the counselor is going to partner with you and your student to make sure that your student is on track. Now you all, last year's, or current ninth graders, are the first ones that were, that had the latest change in diploma requirements. Okay, so this set of diploma requirements started with our current ninth graders. So you'll see it worded in the program of studies when they link it on the LCPS webpage. I think the verbiage will be beginning with students entering ninth grade in 2018-2019. So you can translate that. That means you. Okay, so it started last year. It applies everybody onward until they change it again. So the courses in our recent history have not changed, but the verified credit requirements have. So what does that mean? That means the testing requirements. And the good news is that they've been decreased. Okay, that's the main point of all of this. So there are different course requirements for the advanced studies versus the standard diploma. But whereas before, everybody had to pass 2 English SOLs. For the standard, you had to pass 1 math, 1 science, 1 history, 1 by choice. For the advanced, you had to pass your 2 English, 2 math, 2 science, 2 history, 1 by choice. So now they have streamlined it down where it is 2 English, regardless, 1 math for both types of diplomas, 1 science, 1 history, and 1 choice. Okay, so that is, nope, they took away the choice. You don't even have to. It's a total of 5. Okay, so that is so streamlined. If you had kids that were in our schools before in the county, it's going to be so much less testing, which we think is a great thing. What we need to work on then is that we are not able to test your students once they've passed that. So that's for us to figure out as far as you're in this class, you don't have to test, you have to test, but we'll get there. But just know that the ultimate takeaway for the testing and the changing, if you've had older students, is that it's less, and we think that'll be a good thing for your students. Okay, so I'm going to focus a bit more on the core courses or the coursework rather.
So those testing, are you talking about the SOL
The
test?
SOLs, yes, thank you.
Okay.
The SOLs.
And I saw that there's 2 columns for advanced on standard, so the test is the same or 2 different tests for the advanced?
That's a good question. So when I say testing, I'm talking about the SOLs. You'll hear me say a verified credit. And that means you've done 2 things. You passed the class and you passed the SOL that comes with the class. So that SOL is standard. If you are in World History 1 academic, you're taking the World History 1 SOL. If you're in a different level of what is this, it meets the same curriculum requirement, if you're in Pre-AP World, you're taking that same SOL. That's the World History SOL. Okay, so the tests are linked with the classes. So yes, so if you pass the class and pass the course, that's what qualifies you as what we call a verified credit. So everybody has to take 4 credits of English, 9, 10, 11, 12. You can hit that at any different level. You know, that could be honors AP, it could be academic all the way. You still met the requirements of English 9, 10, 11, 12. For math, and that's for standard and advanced. For math, you have 4 credits as well. Must start with algebra and go up through or beyond algebra 2. For the standard, you need 3 credits. For the lab science, you need 4 courses. And you'll see later, I'll show you, it's kind of like a choose your own adventure, especially in science. But you could start with earth science, you could start with biology, research, but you have to hit 4 of those core science courses. For the standard diploma, it's 3. Okay? And the philosophy behind this, the way it started was because the standard diploma was designed to give you more elective choices. It's designed to help you meet those required and then free up more spots to say, let me explore these electives. All right, and I will tell you that we have plenty of students on the standard diploma that go on to a 4-year college. You know, some students end up with a standard diploma because they have maybe 2 years of a language instead of 3. 3, and they're still taking APs and their other courses. So I'm going to talk about this as though it's very black and white because it has to be able to be explained, but there's a lot of room for wiggle in here, and we are the ones that use the advanced studies, standard studies titles. Okay, colleges are going to look and say, what did you take compared to the rigor that was offered? You know, and so for example, that student that had the standard diploma with the title, but hey, they've got a ton of rigor and really they just didn't hit this requirement, you know, maybe they moved, it didn't work, that's okay. Okay, so, but we're there with you to work on this each year. History and social sciences, you need four courses for the advanced studies. That's typically going to be will be World History 1, whatever level, World History 2, U.S. History, and Government. For the standard, you only need 3, but the thing with that is that your choice comes in either World 1 or World 2. So very often kids are taking World 1. I would say that often we see those hit on all 4 accounts. So that's 3 credits of social science. PE. They only have to take 2 years of PE, but rest assured we have plenty of advanced PE options for the students that really like that PE in their day. So they have a 2-credit requirement, and that's going to come 9th and 10th grade, so that they're done with that. World language. This is a part of our advanced studies requirement. You either need 3 years of one language or 2 years of one and 2 of another. In math and world language, those are ones where you may have already started earning credits in middle school. Okay. So any math that starts with Algebra 1 and above is a high school credit. It will be part of their high school transcript. I'm going to talk to you about that in a little bit. Okay, same with world language. You know, if you're in Spanish 1 and on, those are high school credits that your student is taking in middle school. There is no world language requirement for the standard. You must take one fine or practical arts or a career and tech ed course as part of the standard, as part of the advanced. And then you have to have 2 sequential electives for the standard diploma. And that is very easy to hit because you're taking 7 credits each year. And so there is, even after you've hit all of these core requirements, there's going to be room for those electives. So you're going to scoop those up. Econ and personal finance, there is a credit requirement for both types. We offer that. Econ is a semester, personal finance is a semester. AP Econ, which is a year-long class, also hits that requirement. And then you'll see they'll need 3 additional electives for the advanced studies, 4 additional for standard diploma. So anything that doesn't go directly, once you've hit those core course requirements up there, anything beyond that is considered an elective towards the diploma. I wouldn't worry about these. You're right. If your student is taking a full load, you're going to have that and more. And then a CTE credential. So that is part of the standard diploma. Okay, and this, they will have the opportunity to sit for the WISE test, which is part of their personal finance class. And that is a CTE credential. It shows that they have developed and mastered the skills needed for that certification of personal finance literacy. Okay, so we build this into that personal finance class. So don't feel like you have to go outside of the class and pay for an additional exam and they have to get trained in pep sitting or whatever. That's built into that. And even our students that take that year-long AP Econ, which qualifies for Econ Personal Finance, they take that as well. Now you'll see that this is a requirement for standard and not advanced, but we're not comfortable with leaving that unchecked for a student just because all throughout their 4 years they're on track for an advanced. They could get mono senior year and have to drop that for science. Now they're on the standard. So we have them all take that CTE credential to make sure that everybody is safeguarded. The virtual course requirement. This is another one where we kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. That is the program that they are studying, EverFi is what it's called, which is an online piece to the personal finance class as well as the AP Econ. So this is built in, all right? And then there's your total number of credits, 26 for the advanced studies and 22 for the standard. Okay, so if this is how you're feeling right now, that's okay, all right? Often your students start glazing over well before you do, that's great. Please know that each year your counselor will meet with your students, all right? When they go over their course selection process, they're going to use what is called an academic career plan. And in this plan, this is small, but it's linked on that website, the course selection information website. They're going to list out what you've taken, what you need to take to hit those diploma requirements. The diploma requirements are on here as well. And they're going to check, okay, which tests have you passed so far? Where are you in meeting all these requirements? What is your career goal? You know, what diploma or type are you going for at this point? So they're going to sit down with them once a year, which doesn't mean they can't have other conversations throughout the year, but guaranteed once a year to talk specifically about this, and this should come home to you. Okay, your student leaves with a copy of this to take home to you. So feel free around this time each year to ask them to see their academic career plan. Okay, yes?
Will they be doing that now, or is this after ninth grade?
This is at Heritage. I know that your Mr. Missick and whoever your 8th grade counselor, she was asking about going over their projected studies. Their form is not going to look exactly like this because this is our Heritage forum, but that's part of their conversation. Mr. Missick, do you want to talk about that at all, or that basically it?
Yes, as far as talking to them about their next year.
Yep, and just making sure that they understand what those diploma requirements are and kind of planning it out. You guys also get the benefit. Mr. Missick was a high school counselor, so he is well versed in this, probably more than most.
Yes. So, and then as you guys, you already mentioned, the Heritage counselors are going to be coming over
Yeah.
a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to go over those diploma requirements?
They will. Yeah, they will. So they'll be hearing it from Mr. Missick when he's meeting with them, but also in general from the counselors. Yeah. I pulled him mid-conversation. That was not nice.
Contact me with any questions. I'll be talking to the students about that tomorrow.
You're in good hands. So like I said, they're going to go over all of that. They're going to ask them, you know, what are you thinking about as your career goal? And they'll keep a record of that. And then they're going to emphasize that balance that I talked about as well. So you should see this coming home with them. And each year, there's a spot for your signature as a reminder. Okay, so remember how I said that some of your students may have already taken some high school credits? So if your student took an Algebra 1 or above in math, took a world language, you know, 1 to anything on above, those are high school credits that they took in middle school. That is the beginning of their high school transcript. That is the same document that goes to colleges, okay? So because they were middle schoolers, when they chose to take these, this is the only chance that they get to say, I think I want to do over, you know, because we recognize that they push themselves, you know, to the degree that they're taking high school courses. So by August 15th, right, August 15th, that same month that school's going to be starting for their 9th grade year, this is your only chance to say, I want to expunge those grades, okay? After that, it is what it is. But you do get the chance to take it off and start fresh. Now, if you expunge it, it doesn't show in their transcript. It doesn't go into their GPA. There's no credit awarded. So if they got a B, which are some of the tougher, you know, conversations, B, you know, something where you're like, well, that's a good grade, or hopefully you're like, well, that's a good grade. But you're wondering if that's the start you want to have with the GPA, have those family discussions. You know, that's a B, that's a credit, which they're going to go into high school if that's the only class with the 3.0 GPA. But bear in mind, that's the only class they've taken so far. So as they take more and more classes, that's going to balance out. So you'll need to decide, you know, what's the best track. You know, is that fine? Can you wrap your mind around that and feel like that's an okay place to start? Or is that not where you want to start and you want to give them a chance to do it over, having had the benefit of seeing the information? That's fine as well. But those are some of the things you need to consider. I would say my advice is if it's a C or below, you need to really think about the expunge. That would just give them a chance to redo, give them a chance to start fresh. If it was a struggle to get through that class, maybe you try something different. You know, if it's a world language specifically, I mean, math, you have to take it. But think about that, have those conversations. If you want some advice, feel free to reach out to Mr. Missick, but know that deadline, because after like August 16th, you can't do it. Okay, that's the only chance for a mulligan. Yeah.
Some of those classes provide, at high school, the AP classes provide some points extra for the UPA, UPA. So if they're taking now that in middle school, is that still as a plus points?
So the bumps to the GPA go along with the classes. So, I mean, theoretically, if your student has gotten to the point where they took Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, Trig, that's an honors class. That class comes with a 0.5 bump. So if they got an A in there, instead of a 4.0, they would get a 4.5 worked into their GPA. So the bump comes with the class. It just depends whenever you get to that class to take it. Okay. All right. I mentioned this, yes.
2 questions, ma'am. Does that bump apply to all honors classes?
If it's labeled as an honors class, then a good source for this would be the Program of Studies, which they have linked on the LCPS webpage, and they're supposed to link it today, the new one. But all honors classes have a 0.5 bump, and all dual enrolled and AP courses have a 1.0 bump. So what that doesn't mean, no matter what your students might tell you, is that if they get a C in the class, they're like, no, Mom, it's a B. It's a C. All right, there will still be a C on that transcript. But the way the GPA works is it's a fraction, right? And so for each final grade that you get a certain number of quality points. You know, they're a 4.0 student. An A gets 4 points per quality point, a B is 3, a C is 2, a D is 1, you get nothing for an F. And then you can talk about pluses and minuses. An A minus is a 3.7. So for each final grade, if you were to get an A in an AP class, instead of a 4 going on the top of that numerator of the GPA over the 1 credit possible, it's a 4 plus 1. So it's 5 over 1, which is why that GPA then increases exponentially.
If she's taken, let's say French 1 and French 2, which are the high school equivalent, does that count against the credits that she will need for the standard and advanced?
Yeah, they count. So she's hit 2 of her world language requirements already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They count towards it. So I mentioned Course Info Night, right? That's this Monday. Starts at 7:30, starts in the auditorium, then we go for question and answer in the library. I would encourage you all to attend, bring your kids. This is just a sample freshman schedule. And you know, the levels could be different depending on what you choose, but they will need some version of English 9, whether that's academic or honors, some version of math, whether it's one of these, earth science or research biology, world history / geography to 1500. If you've been in the county for a while, we used to call it World History 1. They've changed the name. Health PE 9, or world language, unless you're sure that that's not where you want to go with the diploma, an elective, and a study hall. And if you hear us talking about Pride Time, that is our advisory. That's 20 minutes every Wednesday, and we have that as groups of about 14 or 15 students, mixed grades. And the idea is that they stay together as a group so that they have students that they get to know from different grade levels. They have another faculty, trusted adult in the building. And that's where we do some of those, you know, character building lessons. That substance abuse advisory lesson was given in that format, and different things that we address them.
And they have this every day. It's not A and B days.
It's A and B days.
Okay.
It is, yeah. So when you see the schedule, you'll see A on top, B on the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The A day is 1, 2, 3, 4. B day is 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so it's 90 minutes each block. And then on Wednesdays, whether it's an A or a B day, each block is a little shorter, so that in the middle we have 20 minutes, and then whole school lunch.
Is this presentation on the website?
It is.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
It is. So I'm not going to go into great detail. This is like your preview of what you'll hear at Course Info Night. We have this information linked as well, where you can see kind of a comparison. What does it mean if I'm signing up for English 9 academic versus honors? Okay, you can see what that means as far as skills needed to be successful, estimated homework time, any GPA bumps, the math track, right? So you're not just thinking about next year, right? You're thinking about down the road. This is important because you're feeling that pressure, you know, especially I think it applies a lot to Algebra 2 trig, that decision to go to Algebra 2 trig, and bump up and up and up. For some kids, that's totally appropriate. What you need to understand is, if this is your end goal, right, this is college math, AP Calculus AB, you can get there by taking pre-calculus, Algebra 2, and geometry, right? If your student took Algebra 1 in 8th grade, you don't have to go this route to get at the same spot. And that's good because that's not everybody's pacing. You know, and so the decisions you make now help you to have a successful footing if you're matching the level with the skills and the need of your student. Okay, so you want to kind of project out, say, where do I want to be? And then what's the best way to get there? Okay, because we have some in-between levels. So if you are in Algebra 2, and you are not feeling ready to go right on to pre-calculus, you could go advanced functions and modeling, and then pre-calculus. And what we find often is if that consideration really wasn't thought about at the beginning, we have kids that go to that halfway point, which is not a bad thing, but ultimately you're getting to the same spot. So just to know that where's your end goal and what are your different options to get there. Okay, you don't have to go like this and then get to the same spot.
What's sort of like the easiest route for a kid that's challenged with math?
So, Algebra 1 is the first math credit, right? If you are on track with your grade, you're taking that in 9th grade, and that's okay. I've had kids on my caseload that started in Algebra 1 and are doing wonderfully in college. Algebra 1, geometry. We do have a midway option there if they need extra support in the Algebra 1 before moving on to Algebra 2. We have a functions class, which will really help that, especially kids that are struggling to pass that Algebra 1 SOL.
So it's sort of like the bottom track?
Yeah, this is an option to beef up those Algebra 1 skills, right? And sometimes we choose to do that right after Algebra. Reinforce it, get further on the path so that then they'll get geometry and then they'll get Algebra 2.
So Algebra 1 is what they're taking now, right? Here.
Yes. They don't have to take it
advanced.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first high school math course they can take. Whether they take it at Harper Park or at Heritage for the first time in 9th grade, that's dependent on the student. And I would say our special ed program offers a few different variations as well.
So your recommendation is if this year Algebra 1 ends at a C, you should probably retake it?
I would never say that on paper, but I would strongly consider you guys talking about that as a family. Because that just you want them to go in confident, right? So it's a rare situation where they're getting a C in the class, but no, they've got the skills because they're going to be, that foundation is really solid despite that. So that's why I say that. Yeah.
So geometry is considered already advanced classes?
So geometry typically comes right after Algebra 1. Algebra 1 is a high school credit, geometry is a high school credit. So you can kind of choose which direction after that. Are they taking it here?
Yeah.
Geometry?
Yeah.
Yep, so they're taking a high school class. So then you're going to be one of those ones that's deciding, do I do Algebra 2 or Algebra 2 trig?
So, but they cannot take algebra 2 from here?
To take Algebra 2 at Harper Park?
Uh-huh.
I think that was offered. Did you guys offer it here? You had some Algebra 2 here, right? Yeah, so that's within their Harper Park course selection process, yeah.
But teachers will have an input on that as well, right?
Yes, that's where that teacher recommendation is so important, to hear it and to have that discussion. Science, same thing, right? And I will say the biggest takeaway here is that if you're trying to decide as a family, do I do biology research right off the bat, you just need to know that you're skipping this option. So you're signing on for those advanced science courses as a senior. Okay, so it's not just what works as a freshman, it's knowing that you're cutting this option out, so you're signing on for AP science courses for your student. That's the reality of that choice as they get further on. So think about whether you're willing to make that commitment right now. For some, that's fine. For others, that might be the point to talk with your teacher.
What's the difference in the dot colors when we look at the science?
So our science department chair made this, and Rigor, she's kind of visually trying to show as it's increasing, and I would say that this needs to be updated. We now also offer AP Environmental. And this is on the PowerPoint as well. Okay, I just talked about that. Social sciences, again, what does it mean to be in pre-AP world history versus academic world history? They both address the same content. They're both going to prepare you for the World History 1 SOL. They're both going to talk about primary source analysis, but look at the difference in time commitment. 60 to 75 minutes of homework between blocks for pre-AP versus 30 minutes. So that's that reality that you need to consider when you're making your choices. Okay, and remember that deadline of June 14th, right? So all this homework I've given you to talk about as a family and get to a good spot, June 14th is your deadline. And there's plenty that's offered as well. We spent a lot of time on academics, but there's different initiatives throughout the county, throughout our counseling department to help you get through these 4 years successfully and look past these 4 years so that you're ready to graduate as an independent, well-functioning, positive member of the community. First intro night. involve them to encourage them to get involved. Encourage you to check out the Student Activities website on the Heritage webpage. Listing of everything there. Mr. York used to be our librarian. He's our, still is our librarian. Now he's also librarian and activities coordinator. Email him if you have any questions. And then we have Rising 9th Grade Night, Thursday, March 7th at 7 p.m. In the Heritage Auditorium.
So this is an after-school, back up for a minute.
Yep.
What is March 7th again?
That is,
I'm kind of lost.
Yep, so what I'm doing now is I'm going to give you dates to put on your calendar, more opportunities to learn more about the transition to 9th grade, to feel a bit more comfortable, have your questions answered. We have a lot of pieces along the way to try to hit that. Rising 9th Grade Night is an evening program. It's Thursday, March 7th.
So what do you do there?
At 7 p.m. So we're going to go over transition information. You guys are ahead of the game, I'll be honest. So a lot of this information will be in that as well, but expanded upon. Okay. We would like for them to. Typically, it's just yeah. Okay. And you'll hear more about this announced by Ms. Harper and Mr. Missick. And then your students, your 8th graders, will come and visit us during the school day on Wednesday, April 3rd. You don't have to do anything special. Just know to ask about it when they come home. All right, and our kids take them around. They get to tour the school, find out more about activities. That's Wednesday, April 3rd. Athletics Info Night. A lot of you guys had questions or were excited about athletics at Heritage, as you should be. Mr. Totero and Mr. Ciano, our assistant AD, they're going to come here. There's a lot of H's to make sure you know whether it's here or there. Harper Park Auditorium, April 30th, starting at 6 p.m. All right, and they're going to welcome you. They're going to share their athletic philosophy, talk about physicals, paperwork, schedules. You get to meet the fall coaches, and they'll talk to you about the Athletics Booster Club. Okay, so that's April 30th.
All of this is on your website?
Yes.
Is that only for fall sports or for all year round?
I think just the fall sports coaches will be there, but he's going to talk about the entire year athletic program. Okay. Back to school celebration. We don't have a date for this yet, but this year it was the Monday before school started. It's in the evening. We have food trucks. The teachers are ready to greet your students. They'll have their schedules by then, so they'll come around, they'll follow their schedule. They probably won't talk to you at all. They'll run off with their friends, meet their teachers. It's pretty, they're excited to see you, so you can meet their teachers as well. Prior to everybody being invited, there is a freshman orientation where we have them do a scavenger hunt within the building to meet important people, see different places. So you'll get more information. I just wanted you to be on the lookout for that, and that is usually the week of that first day of school. All right. We're excited to have you. I know there was a lot of information. I'm happy to stick around for questions. Thank you for being here. We're excited to partner with you as you welcome your students to class of 2023.
Thank you. Thank you.
She's in 8th grade now. She's at Simpson. She's going to be
Okay, what was your
Lisa.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I thought you looked good.
Yeah, I saw you, I see you every now and again, different places. But, okay, so for some reason I thought you were saying that she was already in high school.
No.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm going to go ask one.
So I need to request an extra
You did not do your part. I'm not going to be on you.
I will take that.
And this is public.
This interpreter seems to be available, so can we catch her?
Let me get your information, okay? Because we are sure we know where we can request it.
Yes.
All right.
You can write your